Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty leagues, PPR leagues, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is up? Welcome to the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Today, my name is Tom Dougherty, your host. As always, this podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, as we are going to go into some stuff regarding expectations for players that need to meet their expectations and surprises from some players that, we might be surprised by, or obviously rookies are always the ones that we're going to be probably the most surprised by guys who we thought maybe fell in the draft a little bit. Like, say Darius Geis goes off. Watch Darius Geis be the best running back in the draft, at least this season. The thing is, it's easy to get all wrapped up in one season. And Alvin Kamara, obviously, he's a little different because you're able to see the skills that he has already, and the work ethic he's able to put in are able to translate. They can transcend down the years. But say Darius Geis goes off this year and becomes the number one fantasy running back of the rookies, beats out it's better than Saquon. That would be considered a surprise because he fell in the draft. He was highly touted coming into the draft, but he fell in the draft on draft day, and then obviously through the weekend. I think he ended up getting picked in the third round. So they figured it out. He's on the Redskins. They have a new quarterback as well, Alex Smith. I don't know what his expectations are. See, that's the thing. There's players who obviously have expectations, basically the top 3 rounds of drafting, maybe even the top 4 rounds of drafting, or 5 if you're going to get to quarterbacks, have expectations. Or if you want to look at the draft rankings, we're going to actually do a mock draft at the end of the show today. But if you look at the draft rankings, those can also give you some sort of guidelines on expectations and what to expect when the season comes. And obviously, there's some of these guys have been doing this for years. I mean, Antonio Brown's been putting up numbers for years. Le'Veon Bell's been putting up numbers for years. DeAndre Hopkins has been putting up numbers for the last few years. Guys who haven't, Todd Gurley. Obviously, the second-year players coming in this year. Guys like a Cooper Kupp or something like that, or maybe even a Marquise Lee, who I'm not Marquise Lee, Marquise Goodwin, Marquise Lee too. Marquise Lee actually is not that bad of an option too. He's pretty much the only guy left down there in Jacksonville, so I wouldn't actually mind taking him. But no, Marquise Goodwin, he was a guy who was a surprise last year, ended up having a really good connection with the way he was with the first quarterback, the second quarterback the Niners had last year. The guy they drafted, but then you get Jimmy Garoppolo, and he obviously has a good little rapport with Jimmy Garoppolo, and you're good. But that's kind of what it's going to be this whole show. It says surprises, expectations. I think I'm gonna split it up by segment here. We can alternate. Because I think we only need one section of surprises. So we'll do expectations, guys who had to meet their expectations this season. We'll talk about that in the first couple segments. Then we'll go into our surprises, guys that we might be surprised by. Whether that can go either way. That could be surprisingly bad, or underwhelming, or underperforming, or surprisingly good. So we'll take a look at that. And we're going to start on expectations, and we'll start with Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham Jr., my favorite person to talk about, isn't it? Well, not really, actually. I don't know. Who is my favorite person to talk about on this show? I talk about I rant about a lot of different people. Odell is one of them. His teammate is another one, Saquon Barkley, but he's a rookie, so I'll leave him be, at least for these few segments today. But Odell Beckham, what are you expecting from him? he doesn't translate to wins. He gets in fights with kicking nets. He gets injured. I just was looking on Instagram earlier, and they celebrity mean tweets from Jimmy Kimmel does the celebrity mean tweets, and the one that was pretty funny. The Odell Beckham was on there, and it happened a long time ago, but Instagram kind of pulls these things up, and it was a sports one, and Odell Beckham was the first one. It's like Odell Beckham is a player who was a player who was a really cool rookie, and then all of a sudden became a really annoying bleep really, really fast. Basically, he went from really interesting rookie to annoying person really fast. How long has he been in the league for? 3 years? 3 years? And we're already talking about him like he's going to be one of the best receivers ever? No. Yeah, he made that one catch against Dallas. I saw some flag football player make that catch last week. Those gloves they have on these days, yeah, the body control is great, but the ball sticking on his hand. Okay. You can figure that one. You can figure that one out. The gloves are pretty good. So looking at him, he's been since 2014. So he's coming into his is that 5 years then? 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, 5 years of professional career. So looking at his numbers, obviously last year shortened numbers because of the fact that he was hurt. But 101 catches for over 1,300 yards in 2016. That's where the expectations are sat at. When you get that, he's done that actually twice, I think. He did that in 2015. Obviously, his rookie season was pretty good too. But he's been able to perform. He's been able to put up numbers. I thought that he would be a really nice safety blanket / person to feed for a rookie quarterback if the Giants were going to go that direction. Obviously, they decided not to. But getting the running back, defenses are going to be more keen on Saquon. Odell might have a little more room to run. I don't really know that, but the play action passing game is going to be a little more potent for the Giants this year, you could say. And Odell will probably be somebody that you can definitely rely on, and will probably benefit from that increased effectiveness of the play action passing game for the Giants. And Eli Manning, I know last year was kind of a weird year. It was definitely a weird year for him, all the benching and such like that, and the coach obviously not doing what he should be doing, and then obviously getting it straightened out with the new coach this year. And you see what Eli can do. It's going to be. I'm really interested to see what Eli is going to do this year. Eli is not he's not really somebody we're going to talk about on the show as regarding to his performance per se, but how is he going to help Odell Beckham? Because Odell Beckham needs to get his touches, and that's the one thing I kind of don't really like about him is he needs to feed me. Well, then get open, and he'll feed you. He'll find you. The slant and go plays. With the play action on the backside, that's going to be tough to defend. So, honestly, this year might be the best year expectation-wise because of the fact that you have another star player on your offense with you. And then obviously you have some talents around you as well with Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard. So defenses are going to have a little bit of a challenge with the Giants offense. So I'm not saying that I'm not telling you that Odell is going to go downhill this year. I don't think he is. I just don't think he's going to be that much better than a DeAndre Hopkins or that much better than a Michael Thomas. He's not. I think that the upside is great. But the percentage chance of getting that upside and reaching those expectations, I think, are better with other players. They're just better with other players. And Odell, yeah, he just, I don't know, weird offseason. It's crazy how kind of that whole, I know that people were like, oh, he was on vacation, don't worry about it, which is probably why it blew over so much. But we don't want to forget that there was a video of him in a hotel room in Europe with some things in that bed. I'm not telling you that I'm it's whatever. It is whatever. But I'm saying he had a busy offseason, is also rehabbing an injury. We have seen him do videos of some agility drills, and he looks like he's all right. But ankles are weird, and they can with somebody that's, especially with his frame and size and little toothpick legs. You're going to probably be worried about his injury prognosis in the future. And defenses aren't silly. I know that the bounding gate is gone, but it's the NFL. You think that the DBs and safeties are going to be going after him? They already go after him anyways. And he plays in the NFC East with the Redskins. And guess who's on the Redskins? Oh, his best buddy, Josh Norman. There you go. Twice a year. Have fun with that one, Odell. All right, we'll go off Odell. We're going to go off Odell for the last few minutes of this segment here. And talking about expectations, we'll go to a running back. And this is interesting. The expectations of Kareem Hunt. This is second-year players. The expectations of Kareem Hunt and the expectations of even a Todd Gurley, because you saw Todd Gurley go off his first year, rookie year. I say freshman year, rookie year. Goes down, sophomore slump, gets a new coach, his third year, and is great. Now, obviously, there's no Jeff Fisher in Kansas City. It's still Andy Reid, and Andy Reid is great. But you saw Kareem Hunt kind of take a little bit of a dive in the back end of the season last year because defenses were trying to figure it out. I think that the fact that you have a Patrick Mahomes, who we'll get to in a moment, eventually here on the show for sure. I didn't talk about him on the last show earlier this week, and I should have. But no, Patrick Mahomes. He is an exciting player, man. He's exciting, but I think it's obviously he's going to be a big help for a vehicle to get the ball, obviously, to the other guys on the field. They have a lot of talent on that field, but for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Kareem Hunt, what are the expectations for him? Do you think he should be a top 3 running back in the league? Do you think he should be up there with the Zekes and the Le'Veon Bells and the Gurleys and the David Johnsons? Is he up there yet? Or Kamara leapfrogged him real quick. Obviously, I think they shared the offensive player, the rookie of the year last season. They were both deserving for sure. But what are the expectations? I can lump Kamara right with them because they're right in the same position. Kareem Hunt and Kamara are both projected way up in the top of the first round or top of the draft in a lot of projections, whether it's late first round, early second round for either guy. I think Kamara even is higher up in the first round, depending on if it's PPR or not. PPR, Kamara could be up there. Honestly, PPR, Kamara is a nightmare. That's one I would definitely get him up there. Then obviously Zeke, I've maybe flip-flop him and Zeke because non-PPR Zeke's around like 4 or 5 spot, 4th, 5th, 6th spot, and then you flip-flop and or maybe even a 3rd spot, and then he's dropped down to like the 6th, 7th, 8th spot for Zeke, and then you could put probably Kamara up there in those top numbers with PPR because he's a little more of a weapon out of the backfield. And that just goes to, I told you, we talked about performance variables earlier last week, and how offenses have everything to do with it. Obviously play calls, how we're going to get into like different dynamics of it, crowded backfields and stuff like that. Obviously there's lots of variables. We talked about that basically for a whole show last week. So you guys, if you've been listening, are definitely in the know when it comes to that. You definitely know there's a lot of things that can be affecting it. So like Sean Payton, just he has Drew Brees, and Drew Brees, he's better throwing the ball out of the backfield than Dak Prescott. It's actually not the easiest thing in the world. Throwing the ball off your back foot, usually backpedaling to a screen play or to a moving target guy running away from you, or those little swing passes that are lateral, obviously can be dangerous because they can turn into turnovers very easily. It can become easy plays, little dump passes. You didn't see Dak do it as much because it takes a little touch. But, obviously, the Hall of Fame, Drew Brees, future Hall of Famer, absolutely about to break the all-time passing yards record. Drew Brees is this season. He's going to do it by at least week 6 or 7. But he's very good at throwing the ball in the backfield. He's also very good at those wheel routes. You saw Kamara last year just destroy the sideline with those wheel routes up the sideline, beating the corner, getting between the safety and the corner there, and Drew Brees would drop it right on the dime right to him. So that's why you're going to see probably a lot of catches for Kamara. And I mean, this year is going to be interesting though, because obviously 4 weeks without Mark Ingram is a new thing. That's another variable. That's something we haven't seen before. We haven't seen Kamara by himself yet. Obviously, they had sets last year where he was only running back single back sets, but a lot of them were the 2-back sets. They did a lot of that last year, and Kamara kind of acted as like another receiver out of the backfield, and they would fake it and give it to the Kamara on like a real route, and he would get mismatched on like a safety. or a linebacker. I mean, I don't think this year he's going to get a lot. That's the thing. Defenses adjust. So like when last year he plays everybody once, obviously except for the division. But everybody once. Oh, our safeties are good enough. We can cover him. Our safeties are good enough. We can cover him. Oh, our safeties are good enough. We can cover. This year they're probably like, our linebackers are good enough. Our linebackers are good enough. They can cover him. This year he's probably going to get a lot of double coverage, because they're going to change. They finally realize the linebackers cannot cover him. So he might get bracket coverage with the safety and the linebacker paying attention to him if he's going to go out into a deeper pass route. But the expectations are high. Obviously, I'm like, what are the expectations? They're obviously high, but if he can meet them, that's the question. And honestly, I'm not sure, because this coming season, the sophomore slump's always a thing. He's obviously got a lot of tools and got a lot of skills with his elusiveness and quickness, so he might just be all right, but you never know. So we'll come back in the next segment and do some more talk on a few different players, and we only made it through a couple different guys in this segment, but we'll have some more time in the next segment, and we'll do some talk on a couple different guys on their expectations. Then we'll come back for some surprises in the third segment before we do our mock draft in the fourth segment today. So everybody stay tuned. We will be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. As we are talking about expectations for players, and when you draft them, what do you expect from them? Do you expect fantasy is weird, because obviously you can have a player who go off every week and still be bad, because it's a team thing. And so you have to have a collectiveness of a bunch of good players, not just one. The guy who last year, we had somebody on my league last year had Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, and they averaged 20 something points a game, because averaged it all the way throughout the season. They had games where they went off for a lot. Both of them had 30 one couple weeks in a row, but he came in seventh. You could have 2 star players. You need to have 4 star players. You need to have 4 star players and everybody else do mediocre, or have everybody do decent, or have 2 star players and everybody else do okay, or have middle of the road. You could tier out your players a little bit. Last year, obviously my top player was Todd Gurley. Then I had DeAndre Hopkins, probably my second best player. Then I had, I'm trying to think, I mixed and matched Ben Roethlisberger and Matt Stafford when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So those probably were my second best and third best players. So I made it work. Just made it work. You get some help throughout the day. Honestly, I love Yahoo, because Yahoo actually still has my my fantasy from last year, so I can actually kind of cross reference from last year as I look at my team last year. So I had Mike Evans. Actually, Mike Evans last year wasn't the worst. He did have the the issue because of the suspension. But Mike Evans, what's your expectations for Mike Evans? Obviously, he's going to be without Jameis Winston for 3 weeks of the season. Obviously, last year it's pretty volatile. He had some good year, had good days, he had bad days. He had days where he had not even 5 points. He had days where he had 20 points. Last year his game high was 21 points on Yahoo. So and it's PPR. So that's actually not that good, honestly, compared to DeAndre Hopkins, who week in and week out would put in double-digit days. He had his lowest score last year was 14. 14.3 on Yahoo. If you guys can figure out my scoring, I know it's still different. I know ESPN and NFL Net or NFL Fantasy have a little bit different scoring. But Yahoo, PPR, it's pretty basic. We don't really change much as far as our scoring. But, this is DeAndre Hopkins. What a beast. He had two weeks with over 35 points, another 2 weeks with over 25 points, back-to-back, mind you, and another couple weeks over 20. So, and like I said, he averaged about probably 20, I would say he averaged probably 24 points a game, is what I'm going to say he averaged. 24 points a game. I could do the math. But yeah, it's what he averaged as far as it goes. And he always seemed to beat his projections. Actually, last year, sorry, I actually misspoke. Because last year he had one fluky game where he only had 9.9 points. So maybe that'll pull his average down to like 22 or 21. Because he had some really good days. And then obviously, tight ends are kind of weird. I mixed and matched my tight ends all year long. I had Charles Clay and Jack Doyle, kind of mix and match. Jack Doyle, unfortunately, he might be a big guy to look at this year. Unfortunately, Hunter Henry is going to be is out for the season, so you can't do anything with him. But I was looking at expectations here. This is actually a really interesting team that I won this whole thing with. CJ Anderson, honestly, he barely played. Marquise Goodwin was a great pickup. Honestly, I love Marquise Goodwin. He's on my team this year. Honestly, talking about expectations, Marquise Goodwin, my expectations for him are very high. They might not be astronomically high, which is crazy, but they're high because him and Jimmy Garoppolo, and even with C.J. Beathard, who I just remembered his name. Wow. C.J. Beathard had a good little rapport. You saw that big, long bomb C.J. Beathard threw to him. His speed speaks for itself. The guy went to the Olympics. He's an Olympic athlete. But then you also be able to see that he can catch the ball in traffic. He can catch some bullets over the middle. He can take a hit. He can catch the ball on the sideline. You saw Jimmy G and him did everything last year. Catch the ball over the top. His expectations are very high, and especially they're going to have another guy on the field now that they didn't have last year with Jimmy G, and that's Pierre Garçon, and he's pretty good. He's a veteran. He's getting up there in the age a little bit. His expectations might not be as high as a Marquise Goodwin, but this is talking about the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, I know they're my team. I don't really like to try and fanboy them at all. I'm try to keep it even keel with them, but they're going to be one of the sleeper teams in the league this year, or maybe not sleeper anymore because we know that they have the quarterback, but it could be an up-and-coming team this year where they can mix up the NFC. The NFC is already stacked, and if they could sneak into the playoffs, that'd be crazy. Crazy. Obviously, I would be happy, but I try to evaluate it as flatly as possible, as if I was a Cleveland Brown. No, I'm kidding. I've never. But no, it's interesting. Looking at my team last year, it's the team that won the whole thing. This is the roster from the final week that won me my championship game. Ben Roethlisberger, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Todd Gurley. Oh, there he is. Alex Collins, my guy. Expectations are very high for him because if it's Joe Flacco for the Baltimore Ravens, they're going to be running the ball a lot, and they're going to be throwing him out of the backfield a lot because their receiving core is very second tread in my mind. I think didn't they get Michael Crabtree? I think they did draft a receiver. First, I think they did draft a receiver, but they didn't really have anybody. Obviously, we'll see. Hot take of the day: Lamar Jackson, first rookie quarterback to start or to play on the field. First rookie quarterback to get on the field. Lamar Jackson. They love him. They love him. They love what they've seen from him. They're actually the team. He's a rookie, so he's actually starting training camp like this week or next week. The Ravens are taking advantage of some of the early allowances that the NFL is letting teams start training camp early. So they're allowing their team to come. Well, at least they're requiring their rookies to come early. I think they moved the Hall of Fame game up and everything. Everything's been moved up. So they're starting like next week is the training camp for the first week of training camp for the rookies for the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll see Lamar Jackson. Or you guys, I'm sure the NFL Network and ESPN will have cameras out there and you can check him out. So Alex Collins and then Jack Doyle and Theo Riddick. And those guys didn't really have the greater days. Obviously, the person who won me this wasn't my best week in the world. It was pretty good, but that was because Todd Gurley went off for 55 points. against a tough Tennessee team. This is that's the thing. You look at those little, like, for those who use Yahoo, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure they probably do, but the other platforms or services for fantasy give you the opponent, and then when it's the opponent they color code it here on Yahoo. So green means that they give up, they're in the top of the league in allowing yards and points to that position. Red means they're at the bottom of the league. They don't allow very many points to that position. Yellow, obviously middle of the road. So Todd Gurley last year put up 55 points on a team that was red. Tennessee was 21st in the league allowing points to running backs. So interesting, very interesting. Looking at these numbers from last year, obviously you mix and match a team. I usually run with two defenses. We're going to talk about defenses, but we have to do a defensive show eventually here. But back to expectations. I think that your expectations are obviously going to be higher if you pick that person because you want them to do well. But you also have to rein yourself in a little bit here. The draft is all about value. Draft is about value. Draft is about picking somebody in front of your friend and going, ha, I got him before you did because I know you wanted him, and then them having to figure it out, or it happening to you and you making a good decision and figuring it out. Todd Gurley was not highly touted last year. He was not one of the top running backs. He was not in the top of the rankings at all. I had my ranking list. I'm like, cross off, Le'Veon. Zeke was down a little bit because Zeke was dealing with the legal stuff, but Le'Veon, David Johnson, I'm trying to think of more. That was pretty much it last year, honestly, right? When it came to running backs. But, Kamara obviously was way down in the draft, rookie. Mark Ingram, nobody was picking up him yet. I want to look. I think I actually have a picture of the draft results from last year from our league, but you guys don't. This is not a Tommy's Fantasy League podcast. This is just a fantasy football podcast, and we're talking about expectations. So, as far as it goes with receivers, we can rank them by expectations. Obviously, Antonio Brown is way up there. DeAndre Hopkins, he might not get the best because obviously he's going to have people are going to be looking at. Obviously, Deshaun Watson a little closer because they know DeAndre Hopkins, regardless of who's throwing him the ball, he's going to make plays. His expectations might actually be higher, just basically because of the fact that he's been able to do what he can do with the quarterbacks that he has. Antonio Brown has a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing to him in Ben Roethlisberger, so you got to take that into account. But, DeAndre Hopkins, very high expectations. Michael Thomas. My expectations for him are very high. Everybody else, he's kind of still sleeping underneath the mire of all the other great running back receivers in our league. But I think he's definitely top 5 or at least top 3. I think for me, he goes Brown, Hopkins, Thomas, easy. Keenan Allen is number 4. Keenan Allen is definitely number 4. And then I'm thinking about maybe Odell. Down a little bit further, but there's so many guys out there that play really well out of the receiver position. But you gotta be able to kind of figure yourself out as you go along in the draft. Also, like I said, it's all about value, and then it's also all about figuring out who's the most likely to go off from a waiver position. Looking at some of these other guys that I want to talk about, Dalvin Cook coming back from injury. His expectations aren't going to be as high because he's coming back from injury, so he could surprise some. Patrick Mahomes, his expectations are maybe a little bit mediocre because of the fact that he's a young quarterback. But my expectations for him are very high because I love the fact that he has the arm. It's all about the arm strength and be able to have the speed on that team and use that arm strength down the field. And obviously having Travis Kelce, I've talked about this before, is a huge security blanket for a young quarterback because he is a big target. And Patrick Mahomes ain't a small guy either, so he can look right over that line and zip it right over the top to Travis Kelce if he needs to. So, this is a guy who could turn into a top quarterback, especially in this league, and has years to play. Another guy who's who kind of gets forgotten because he plays opposite side the receiver that I've been talking about forever here, and that's Will Fuller. He's down there in Houston too, and his expectations actually are higher than you might think because he's going to be single covered a lot this year. DeAndre Hopkins obviously is going to draw all the attention, and it's going to be up to Deshaun Watson to try and find Will Fuller on the other side of the field. And obviously Bill O'Brien to draw up the correct route combinations to be able to get those schemes working, whether you're going to use DeAndre as a decoy some of the times. Obviously, you're going to get him his touches too. But Will Fuller could be a guy. My expectations for him are high. I think that the league's expectations for him are high because he's shown talent. He's shown what he can do. He's got some great tools. But the volume of being able to get the touches hasn't been there, and I think that's something that's going to happen this year. I think the Texans are going to become a very pass-heavy team. They don't really have the top running back. I think it's Lamar Miller still. Obviously, they'll still try and keep it balanced, but Will Fuller, look out. My expectations are high. This is a good transition because he could honestly surprise some people, and we'll take a break really quick here, and we'll talk about some more people who could surprise this coming season. Stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast here as we are coming back and doing some talk on some people who might surprise you this season. You got to watch out. I mean, you call them sleepers, and we talked about sleepers last year. But, I mean, these are guys who you may have heard of. You might be underwhelmed. You might be a little underwhelmed by. But I wouldn't really call them. I mean, they could be sleepers, I guess, maybe. All right, we'll start with when we started with Will Fuller. We can go back to the Texans. I think the Texans, obviously, this year, if their defense can stay well, I mean, this team could watch out. Honestly, this team has been expected to win for a long time because of their roster, and they're great on paper, but they haven't really been able to perform on the field. And obviously, last year with the injuries, they kind of tank a little bit and end up getting a good draft position. End up having to give it up to the Browns anyways because of the Brock Osweiler situation. So the Browns ended up getting 2 first-round picks. They could have had a 4th pick in the draft. They could have had Denzel Ward, if anything, or leave with Bradley Chubb. But I mean, they probably would have picked Denzel Ward too, that 4th pick, honestly, because they already have 2 pass rushers with obviously J.J. Watt and his buddy over on the other side, Jadeveon Clowney, who was his first pick overall himself. So, all right, back to the Texans. They also have another. We talked about Lamar Miller, but they have another receiver, another running back there. It's Donta Foreman, actually, and he's a pretty interesting guy. He could be a guy who would really take over that role because of Lamar Miller and his struggles with ball security and just with production in general. This is a guy who could be a goal line situation back for the Texans if they get down there on the close short yardage situations where they just power it in, and that's easy points right there. Easy points right there. So I know that they're still trying to tote down rumors that Lamar Miller might get released. We'll see how it goes through training camp. Obviously, a lot of things can change throughout training camp because players can score in teams and stuff like that. So you got to be able to take that into account. Another guy who might surprise you on a new team is Martavis Bryant. I love Martavis Bryant. I've talked about him a lot on this show because of the fact that he has been able to step up in the place of Antonio Brown and be almost as productive as Antonio Brown. I know on a short-term basis, but I mean, this is a guy who's going to have a quarterback in Derek Carr who can drive the ball down the field, but also has the touch to get it to him in different kinds of situations. So I think he's going to be a very, very welcome piece in that Raiders team. He's going to be a much needed piece in that Raiders team because they were pretty much one-dimensional with just Amari Cooper and Jalen Richard last year, running back and receiver. I mean, I know they had Walford as their tight end, I think, but getting a guy like Martavis Bryant, obviously having now Jordy Nelson, you're going to have a really good three-headed monster on that for Derek Carr to throw to. And it's going to be interesting. Basically, pretty sure he'll find a guy open. All three of those guys have separation ability that has been able to be displayed on this level and have shown success on this level. So whether Martavis is going to get the most out of it, I think it might be a situation where they do kind of even each other out. But with the receivers, the way it goes is, even without getting in the end zone, PPR can help. So, Martavis Bryant, I would definitely say, is PPR, and he will be slotted in as the receiver number 2 for the Raiders because Jordy, they're probably going to put Jordy more in the slot and have Martavis and Amari Cooper on the outside. Obviously, you got Chucky now. You got John Gruden in there running that show, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he utilizes this player. And then even Jordy Nelson. I think he's going to have a better year than Jordy Nelson does. I think Jordy's still dealing with some injuries, but you got to watch out for Martavis Bryant. We talked about Marquise Goodwin, another guy, receiver, who's really showing out apparently and did it really well in minicamp and has really shown that he's come back healthy and come back with a really good physique and is totally in shape, and that's Josh Gordon. And honestly, I liked Josh Gordon. I liked Josh Gordon since he was brought up to the league. I know he got in a little bit of trouble, obviously, had to deal with some stuff off the field and then having to deal with reinstatement and stuff to the league. But you got to hand it to him. He's gone through all of his motions. He's gone through all of his tribes and tribulations with his life, and he's found his way back to the NFL. He's got to figure it out to where he's now allowed to play. He's reinstated himself into the league, or he's been reinstated into the league, which is not the easiest thing to do in the world. He could have very easily just packed it up and gone and done whatever he wanted to do, but obviously he's a very good talent. He was a good talent before he got into this mess. He's still in the Browns, which is kind of an upsetting feature, but he's going to be a very, very good weapon. And fantasy is colorblind almost. Fantasy doesn't care which jersey you have on. It's, are you going to put up points? So I don't care if he's on the Browns. I've had Browns players on my team. Isaiah Crowell was a great player. So they had a couple different running backs. I think I had Duke Johnson, great player. Got some points in the Browns, made some moves. Josh Gordon, I think, is going to be able to maybe be a steal in a draft if somebody isn't. If you play with some people who aren't as informed and may not know that he actually is going to be one of their top receivers, if not their top receiver this year. Tyrod does like to run a lot, but they're going to be able to be. The thing is, you got to be able to watch out. Josh Gordon, they've been liking him. They've been liking him down there, but you also have to kind of watch out. It could be a surprise both ways, where it's like, he's back, it's great. Dang it. Well, unfortunately, a surprise. It might not be that much of a surprise if that happens. We do hope that he will do better. All right, another guy, Derek Carr. We just talked about him. Derek Carr, hopefully, with this increased, I wouldn't call it a surprise if he does do well this season. It's more of his expectation. We want to go back to that, but his expectations are maybe not as high as they have been in the past because of the fact that they didn't make the playoffs last year, and then they had a year where they won a bunch of games in the close games, got to 13-3, made the playoffs. Obviously, he was hurt for the playoffs, so. Whether he's going to be very, very motivated. It's not whether. He's going to be very, very motivated this season to be healthy, to get his team back to the playoffs and actually perform in the playoffs this season. He's going to have all the boys with him. He's going to have the support around him. He's going to have Martavis. He's going to have Jordy Nelson. He's going to have Amari Cooper. He's got a pretty good offensive line. He's got, actually a very good offensive line. He's actually got a decent little running back there. So obviously the back and the calf injuries really hurt him last year. John Gruden's going to be calling his plays. I feel like that's going to be a great addition to him. Obviously, John, though, the pressure is going to be on him. I feel like the pressure is going to be on John Gruden, because John Gruden, as much as he may have been involved in those teams working for ESPN last year, he still was working for ESPN last year and still was basically a pundit. He was on TV and on the talking to people. I know he does Gruden quarterback camps, and all that. I couldn't exactly tell you how connected he actually is or back, when it comes to play calling, but this is a fluid situation. Play calling is a constantly evolving thing, and it's not the easiest thing in the world just to pick it right back up again. I mean, it's been a while. It's not like it's been like 3 or 4 years. It's been a while since he's done this last, and there's gonna be some growing pains. Fortunately, the NFL does have your little training wheel games called the preseason, so he'll be able to have that and be able to work some kinks out, obviously, with that. And whether he's going to go, the thing is about football is it's not an exact science. It's not required to do this. It's not paramount to do that. You can make things work the way you want them to work. However, there are things in this league that have proven not to work. I'm not telling you John Gruden's going to go out and do that and try and prove everybody wrong, but there are older models of coaching and play calling that have changed in this league, and he might need to adjust. He'll definitely need to adjust to that, and transitioning from the TV booth is a big coaching is. Obviously he's been the coach for a little bit now, but coaching is night and day. It's just night and day compared to doing TV work. So you got to deal with all of those players, and you basically were just given 70 new children to deal with. It's very interesting how that all works. All right. Going back over to the surprises, you got to watch out for David Njoku. He's a guy who's going to be a tight end for the Cleveland Browns this year and could be a very good weapon for Tyrod Taylor. I know he doesn't like to throw the ball that much. I think it's going to pretty much be him and Josh Gordon, these two guys, and then the running backs, obviously. The Cleveland offense is going to be kind of interesting this year. It's going to be very interesting. Njoku's proven to be a good little tight end. He can catch the ball. He's a big body. He came from a good school, pro-style offense, knows what he's doing. He was drafted as a tight end 15. He's a guy who's going to be the number one tight end for him. He usually does go out into the passing game. He doesn't really block as much. He'll go out for passes more often than not. I got to watch out for him as well. But the Cleveland Browns offense, which I don't like talking about Cleveland, but this is an interesting situation where the Cleveland Browns have some serious weapons on their offense. They got Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon. They got an interesting little dynamic quarterback. They actually have two of them with Tyrod Taylor and obviously Baker Mayfield, and the running backs, and then and the tight ends. It's an interesting little offense. And then it's honestly on defense, you have Denzel Ward and such. And then the Browns, they lost every game last year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I'm not saying they're going to go. I'm not saying they're going to go like 1-15. They might not go. It might go 4-12. I don't know. They actually play in kind of a mediocre division this year. So as much as I don't want to say the Browns are going to go 7-9 this year, it might look that way. It might end up going that way. I don't know how the rest of the one player drafting a rookie it's not going to make or break your defense. And obviously losing Joe Thomas is another situation that they're going to have to deal with as well. So the Browns, they have some things have gone up, other things have gone down. And they're probably going to be right back where they will be. I think they will scratch across a couple wins. Like the Browns, they'll probably beat the Bengals once because the Bengals suck. No offense, but the AFC North is kind of weird right now. Obviously, you still have the Steelers. The Ravens are trying to figure themselves out. The Bengals are treading water, and the Browns are the only ones actually making moves. The only team to make moves, really. And the Ravens maybe made a bit of a move when they were able to trade up and trade back into the first round and get Lamar Jackson. That was a move. But the Browns have made like 4 moves. So, it's just interesting to see. And then obviously they draft Baker Mayfield of all things, that end up, after all this time, they make all the moves. They get Jarvis Landry. They get Nick Chubb. Obviously, this was all after they drafted Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and Ward. But those two, Denzel Ward and Nick Chubb, might end up having better careers than the guy who was picked in front of them. So and this is a quarterback league, so those guys aren't really going to equivocate to too many wins when you have a quarterback like Baker Mayfield who isn't going to get you in position to win very many football games, and then you're going to have to go back to Tyrod Taylor and say, "Hey, Tyrod, we should have kept you in here the whole time and just gone with that." Yeah, it's going to be interesting this year. Can't wait. Cannot wait. We are. What's it? Today's actually Friday the 13th of all things. We're actually recording this show on a Friday. We got a little mixed up with the weeks. Had to go on assignment earlier in the week, so we mixed the show's schedule up a little bit. But today's Friday the 13th. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Quoting the great Michael Scott right there. As we come to the end of this segment, we'll come back and we're going to do a mock draft on this other side of this break. And then we'll sign off for the rest of the day. And you guys can go have a good weekend. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. As we're going to do some mock drafts here on this final segment here. I like doing these mock drafts because they kind of bring up players that I might not think of off the top of my head, and I get to talk about them for a little bit, and it brings up people, gives me a whole list of the old league here. As we're going to do PPR 10-man league. I'm drafting fourth. I did randomize that, and we'll do one quarterback, two receivers, two running backs, a tight end, a flex, which is a receiver or a running back, a defensive team, a kicker, and then your bench players, obviously. And we'll get going right now. And I have the fourth pick. So it's PPR, so I'm expecting it's going to be Le'Veon. And so first pick was Todd Gurley, actually, then Le'Veon, then David Johnson, which leaves me Antonio Brown. Easy pickings. I think he should at least be the second pick overall for PPR. Fourth, it's a steal, honestly, for him, I think. So here we go. Those first rounds summed up. Odell Beckham went fifth. A tie for me, I think. Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Hopkins. So, okay, there we go. DeAndre Hopkins and Ezekiel and Odell Beckham flip-flop that right there, in my book at least. Then you got Kamara, Hunt, then Saquon Barkley, and Michael Thomas. It's PPR. I flip-flop that again. Michael Thomas over Saquon Barkley. Saquon is just, he could honestly be really good. I know he could. I haven't been that high on him. I actually kind of want to be wrong. I don't want to root against any players. I don't like doing that. I just like to take a little bit of a more of a pragmatic view on Saquon Barkley, especially on running backs, especially looking at his stats coming over from college and seeing how they were considerably worse than Ezekiel Elliott and Christian McCaffrey. I mean, look at Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde had a decent college career. Goes to the Niners, had an okay career. Now he's on the Browns. Okay, so I mean, just look at that. Versus the next Ohio State running back to come out of Ohio State, he has a better career. He has puts up actually over 3 yards a carry more often than not. Goes to a better. I mean, the offensive line obviously has everything to do with it down there in Dallas as well. But I digress. So Saquon, Michael Thomas. I like receivers, especially for PPR. I like having Drew Brees thrown to my receivers, so I would take Michael Thomas right there with the last pick in that draft. Then it goes Melvin Gordon, who I love actually. Julio Jones, his draft stock is dropping like a rock. He was the fourth best. He was voted, wasn't he voted like fourth in the NFL top 100? Fourth. And he is the third pick in the second round of this mock. I know this is all mock. This is a fake draft, but it was just telling you it's randomized generator, and they go by stats. So, and just they actually give different. It's actually kind of like a different thing. It's all algorithmed out. Keenan Allen's right after him. I love Keenan Allen. Kind of wish he did not get picked, so I would have picked him. Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey, which means I need a running back probably right now, unless I want to wait and pray to the Lord that I still get Jerrick McKinnon, but he's on the list, so I'm going to take Dalvin Cook. I feel like Jerrick McKinnon's going to go before I get him, so we'll take Dalvin Cook. I actually like Dalvin Cook coming off the injury, especially in that with that team. Oh, look at that. Jerrick McKinnon did not get picked, which means he's going to drop right to me. But in between these two picks, AJ Green, Devonta Freeman, Devontae Adams, who I love. I wish I kind of had him too. Deshaun McCoy, hopefully he gets all of his stuff figured out and is either found to not be involved into that stuff with his girlfriend. I know it's kind of a crappy thing to talk about a little bit, but that's something that might come out further. And then Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski. Honestly, right now with Mike Evans, I probably would take either of the. Well, I would probably take Adam Thielen over Mike Evans because of the situation at quarterback. And even when Jameis Winston's back, I like Kirk Cousins better than Jameis Winston. He's more accurate. He's better in the pocket. He's a better game manager. He's better delivering the ball. So Jameis has not really shown me that much with a good roster. I mean, they have a good defense. Their defense is pretty good. They have some good players. With Joe McCoy and Levante David, Quan Alexander, they have some good players. Brent Grimes, they have some good players on their defense, and they also have some good players on their offense too, with Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson. Obviously, the running back situation's got a little figured out. Obviously, now they have a good young running back with Ronald Jones II. But Jameis is going to be out for the first 3 weeks, so I would definitely take Adam Thielen over Mike Evans for sure. But I'll take Jerrick McKinnon here with this fourth pick in the third round, which is a steal, I think, for him, honestly, as Adam Thielen goes right after. Then the first quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. In the third round, Josh Gordon. There you go, Josh Gordon, third round. That's how high they are on him. That's pretty high for Josh Gordon. Above Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill with Doug Baldwin, Jordan Howard, T.Y. Hilton, there's Tom Brady, Zach Ertz goes Bob Gronkowski, I think. Is he still on there, actually? He hasn't. He got picked. No, he got picked a while ago. I was like, where'd Rob go? I didn't see tight end. He went third pick. He was right before me. Third pick of the third round. All right, so I got running backs. I've got a running back, 2 of them. I got receiver. I need one more receiver. Dang. As much as I want Amari Cooper, which I do, he has the same bye week as my other receiver, Antonio Brown. So I can't do that. I'll do Demaryius Thomas, and we'll see how Case Keenum gets in the ball. I mean, honestly, Thielen and Diggs didn't have they had fine years last year with Keenum, so I'm not really worried about Demaryius at all. And then it goes Joe Mixon, who I actually think is a great little talent. Fourth round for him would be perfect. Perfect time to get him. Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Jarvis Landry, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Allen Robinson. All these are so much talent at receiver. It's just ridiculous how much talent at receiver there is in this league. Absolutely ridiculous. Golden Tate's still available. I'm probably going to pick him right now because I love Golden Tate. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be one of the he's if not the number one guy. I actually like Marvin Jones too. Him and Marvin Jones are pretty much a toss-up at receiver. They play for the same team. But, I'll take Golden Tate. I like him in more position situations. I have 2 big outside receivers with Antonio Brown and Demaryius. Look at that. Demaryius Thomas and Antonio and Golden Tate and Demaryius Thomas. That's a pretty good receiving core right there, folks. As obviously, Juju and Jarvis Landry are great. Allen Robinson, but I like Demaryius and Golden Tate. Russell Wilson goes next. Corey Davis, Kenyon Drake, Rashad Penny. There you go, rookie, 5th round. Corey Davis, also a very talented guy. I think this is his second year now because he got hurt last year. Who's a first-round pick for the Titans. And then it goes Alshon Jeffrey, Michael Crabtree, Greg Olsen, tight ends again. Deshaun Watson, Marvin Jones, Tariq Cohen, Sammy Watkins, Jay Ajayi. All right. So does that mean I've had Cam before as my quarterback in fantasy. He was fine. Then I had him again. He was terrible. He's so volatile. I don't want Cam. I'll take Carson Wentz before I take Cam, even coming off injury, or Drew Brees, honestly. But Drew Brees, I think, isn't going to throw it as much as he has before. So I'll just take Carson Wentz with this pick because I think he's going to be gone by the time I pick again. How many picks until my next turn? Oh, 6. See, this is the problem. This is when you get. This is the guessing. This is the gambling game because the fantasy draft also is a gamble. So, okay, here's my gamble. I'm going to take Evan Ingram right here and pray that there's a quarterback left for me in the next round because I think Evan Ingram will get taken. Well, there's Delaney Walker's there too. And Alex Collins. Actually, well, we'll take the premium. We'll take the premium position. See, here's the thing. You have plenty of other tight ends. Quarterbacks, there's only a couple that actually can push you forward. I know they're kind of a dime a dozen. There's more. Then you have the next tier, and it's like, okay, we're fine with these guys, but they're not going to really advance me with points. This is going to be the basis points, 20 points basically for a quarterback right there is what we need every week. And then anything above that is kind of extra. So I think Carson Wentz can do that when it comes to the extra stuff because of the running ability. So, yep, look at that. Evan Ingram got taken. Look at that. 3 other quarterbacks got taken before my next pick. So you think I made the right choice there? Evan Ingram got picked too. Carson Wentz, Julian Edelman, Jimmy Graham, Cam Newton, Evan Ingram, Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins, which means Delaney Walker is waiting right for me because he is an underrated tight end, and he's very, very good. And Marcus Mariota loves him. So I'll take Delaney Walker. I wish the Niners still had him, honestly. And then Deion Lewis, Cooper Kupp, Jimmy Garoppolo, Robert Woods, Devin Funchess, who's going to be an interesting little receiver down there in Carolina with DJ Moore as the other guy, basically. Matt Stafford, Alex Collins. There's Alex Collins. I couldn't take him because he has the same bye week as my other running back, as my other players. Will Fuller, Darius Guice. There's Darius Guice, 8th round rookie. Derrick Henry, DJ Moore, the other rookie, and Jamison Crowder, who honestly, with Alex Smith, could be a very good player because he doesn't really run those deep routes. He's more the possession receiver, inside the numbers, find the soft spot in the zone. Perfect for Alex Smith. Good hands. Perfect for Alex Smith. Literally bread and butter. Perfect for Alex Smith. All right, 9th. We're still in the 8th round. Who do I need? I need I've got everything. I need a flex player, and Mark Ingram, Pierre Garçon, Royce Freeman. I want a good pass catching running back. Mark Ingram is not that. I'm looking now. Royce Freeman, honestly, is not a bad little guy, bad little player. Oh, Sony Michel. There we go. There he is. I know New England running backs are tough, but I love Sony Michel. I haven't picked him on this team yet. He has the same bye week, but I'll mix him. I'm not actually running with this team. I don't really care. I shouldn't care about bye weeks, honestly, but I try to make it as realistic as possible for everybody. Looking now, I'm trying to fill out my bench a little bit here. Duke Johnson's a very good player. So is Pierre Garçon. We'll take Pierre Garçon to fill up a bench spot. Take a Niner. Got to pick one Niner at least. Actually, I have Jerrick McKinnon. There you go. There's a Niner. As we get in between there is in between Sony Michel and Pierre Garçon was Mark Ingram, Royce Freeman, Lamar Miller, Carlos Hyde, Chris Hogan, Ronald Jones. So you see a lot of running backs now coming back off the board late in this now back in the 8th and 9th round. You'll see some running backs come off. Then after Pierre Garçon was Emmanuel Sanders, Devontae Parker, Chris Johnson, the Jacksonville defense. Marquise Goodwin finally goes. I feel like that's a little low for him. Duke Johnson, Jordy Nelson, Jordan Reed, Randall Cobb, Tevin Coleman, Calvin Ridley, Des Bryant, who's a free agent. Whoever get picked after Des Bryant, you should be sad because that's sad. He's not on a team. He's not on a team, and he might not get on a team for a while because he already would be on one. Another guy, running back to have on your bench and maybe even for a flex is Marlon Mack. He's going to have a good year. He's in Indianapolis, and he's going to be a good dynamic little running back. He's a pretty good player down there in Indianapolis. I'll take him as just a bench guy for my running back position, as we only have a few more picks left here. As Robbie Anderson went, Kerryon Johnson, the good rookie running back, love him. Crowded backfield, that's the only problem. Very crowded back there in Detroit, where Kerryon Johnson is. Nelson Aguilar, Marshawn Lynch, Alan Hearns, and Isaiah Crowell. Yeah, I would flip-flop Crowell and Lynch. I don't think Marshawn Lynch is going to do that much this year. He didn't do much last year at all. Okay, then Sterling Shepard has not get picked yet because everybody thinks he's going to fall off the face of the earth because Odell Beckham and Evan Ingram and Saquon are there. Well, there's going to be one guy. He's still going to get touches. It happens. It still happens. People get touches. Geronimo Allison got touches last year because they have a good quarterback and he could find him. Eli Manning will find him. I'll take him. I don't care. I'm taking him from my bench. He's a great little bench player, can fill in on bye weeks and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that Odell's going to get hurt, but you never know with Odell. All right, Ty Montgomery's on the board right now for me. I'll take him. I like Ty Montgomery. I only have Aaron Jones and Williams there in Green Bay. Montgomery might get both back to playing receiver. I don't need a backup tight end, and I love George Kittle though. George Kittle in San Francisco will be a top tight end very soon in this league. Looking around here, might as well go to defense and get Minnesota's defense, who I actually like better than Jacksonville's defense. No offense, actually, Jacksonville's defense is fine. I'll take Minnesota's defense very early here, and then looking at these receivers. Who's left? Cameron Meredith, honestly, in New Orleans, might be the steal of the bottom half of the draft because he's going to end up being a very good weapon, I think, for on the other side of that offensive formation from Michael Thomas with Drew Brees, because they've lost a lot of receivers. Obviously, Kenny Stills is gone. Colston, remember Marcus Colston? He's been gone for a while, and a couple other guys. I can't remember who the other guy is gone. They had another big guy. They had another guy with the big long hair. He's gone too, I think, on the New Orleans Saints. So I'll take Cameron Meredith. I like Cameron Meredith, big tall receiver. Used to play on the Bears. All right, do I have one more pick? Yeah, one more pick is my kicker, Matt Bryant. Done. Atlanta kicker. Done. All right. That'll wrap it up for the show today. Let's see, what did I get on my grades? A-. Beautiful. As we'll come back next week and do another show for you. It'll be on the normal Tuesday. So everybody have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.